Welcome, Justin, to the Leaders Who Care series. It's great to have you here, man.
What an honor to be here. I can't wait to see where this goes.
Only up, man. Only up. Best way to start, sounds obvious, but the best way to start is if you can briefly introduce yourself, not the business stuff yet, but who's Justin, where you're originally from, where you are now, family, if you want to, say something you've never told anybody before, and this is the time you want to reveal it, things like
Um, well, it's funny you say the word business. I never say it unless someone else says it. So business comes from the Old English word bisignus, which means anxiety. So I always laugh when someone says that word. 10x your anxiety, anxiety coach, anxiety degree. How's your anxiety going? Like it's. And
that.
so I've always crossed that off. Well, not always, but certainly over the last couple of years, my intuition and gut said there was something wrong with that word. So I've always crossed it off literally with a pen or in my head and changed it to purpose or life. So how's your purpose going? How's your life going?
Love
Did
it.
you 10x your life or purpose? So I guess that answers the question. I like to see the gaps or loopholes in life and things like that, and then develop a solution. Certainly for myself first, because if you're not a litmus test for people you serve, that's hypocrisy. But hopefully, be a litmus test for the visionaries I serve, because all I do is hang out with my family and connect visionaries to serve humanity. That's all I do all day.
I know, and you do it. You do it well. Where are you now physically?
Chicago area, I think. I think that's yeah, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, we hung out in LA
Yeah.
or south of LA a couple weeks ago at Abundance 360, and it was like landing on a different planet. And I certainly arrived there one person and came back a different one for sure.
Well, and the first one was pretty good too. So imagine.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you. Thank you.
um, let's see. When you were a kid, I'm going to start with there a little bit. What were you like as a kid or a teenager? Were you a reader, organizer? Did you have a lemonade stand? Did you play sports, music? What'd you do? What were you like?
Yeah, um, and I appreciate you sending a lot of background before this interview. I really appreciate that. It helped me really think. I was like this as a kid, and then most people would just stare, because most 12, 13 year olds don't talk like this. I'll give you a story because this just happened a couple days ago. Unfortunately, my youngest brother, Jerry, died of drug overdose several years ago. He was 29, and he died on March 28th, I believe. So on March 28th, I was looking for a photo of him with my dad. My dad passed away when I was 13. He'd be 108 now. He was 61 when I was born.
Well,
And so I was looking for a photo of them together, but unfortunately, in a previous house, there was a flood that took out most of our possessions, including all of those photos. But so I was digging for it, and what I did find, I guess technically I was raised Jewish, but I'm all faiths. But so I found instead my bar mitzvah speech that my dad and I wrote together. I think I was 12, maybe 13, but 12, and it was the exact same way I write now. It was just there were some quips in there, and it rhymed, and it acknowledged humanity, and it acknowledged mankind, it acknowledged family and friends and network. And I was like, oh, I'm the same exact person. It just took a long time to refine that person because society doesn't understand people like us for the most part. So kind of blended into society for several decades, and now I've reemerged.
yeah, that's quite amazing. We find like threads going back to the kids and who we've been impacted by and everything,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
how that happens.
yeah.
I'm sorry to hear about that about your brother for sure. So it's always
Thank you.
hard, but it's great
Thank
that
you.
that you cherish the memories. That's the biggest.
Gift. It's all a gift. It's all of these are lessons, and I don't understand excuses, or it's confusing to me. Again, my dad was 61 when I was born, and he was a World War II hero, shot down multiple times in combat, many times without a parachute, in Europe Battle of Herkenforth, and he would just get back into a plane. So that's, to me, that's what life is. You just figure it out. You just keep going, and you never stop. And then you just keep learning and learning and raise your level of consciousness. And then that just seems to attract the greatest people, and you just never stop.
True. It's interesting, not to get too off track here. I saw Bill Maher show the other night, and he
Yeah.
talks. We have all these things about anxiety and separation, and this
Mm.
and all these different terms from mindfulness, and all these different terms, and depression and whatnot. It's
Yeah.
okay to be sad sometimes. It doesn't mean you're depressed. It's okay to be this. It doesn't have to have a category for everything. Just keep going.
Well, thank you for saying that. Again, business literally means anxiety. That's literally what it comes from. Sales, by the way, sale comes from the Italian word sale, which means dull and dirty. So you learn all these words, and people that are saying them and trying to do it, and it's like, well, dull, dirty, anxiety, that's probably not good. But the everything to me is a pattern. It's a pattern from loved ones, or talking to the world's top visionaries all day. And then there are only four things that separate visionaries from the rest of the world. There are only four. So one is bankruptcy or potential bankruptcy, two, depression, three, highest level of anxiety you can imagine, and four, trauma as a child or young adult. So for non-visionaries, those are excuses. For visionary, figure it out. That's what visionary life actually is.
Yeah, that makes sense, 100%. Let's look at your journey continued, I would say, not just started. What intrigued you to then take the path of news and journalism, which then led to sports news and much more?
Yeah, I mean, life's a path. I was gonna call the third book Epic Network, but I'm really starting to lead toward Epic Journey. Um, it's
Hmm.
funny because the first book is called Epic Business, so Epic Anxiety,
Exactly.
and then Epic Life. But I think Epic Journey is better. So the purpose of my life has always been connecting visionaries to serve humanity. I mean, again, even in Bar Mitzvah speech, I was kind of doing that.
So is that
Certainly
where
on.
the news and journalism came in to get the message out?
Well, I mean, thank you for bringing the unconscious out into the conscious. I appreciate that. This is why I like doing these interviews. You learn in real time, and hopefully that learning creates, knowledge, and more curiosity in everyone. Then they have curiosity to learn about themselves, which creates more curiosity and raises level of consciousness. But
Right.
but um, if you look at it from a purely genetic storyline standpoint, I guess this might explain it. So I was just born with a story. My dad was 61 when I was born. My mom was 27, 34-year difference. And then after my dad had survived, he was born in 1916, so survived Spanish flu, World War I, depression, should have been killed multiple times in World War II, became attorney in Nazi war crime Nuremberg trials. His best friend was killed in mafia hit, very famous mafia hit. Um, um, and then when he was in his late 50s, a drunk driver hit him head on. Drunk driver was killed instantly. My dad should have been killed, but he survived because you just keep surviving. And then he woke up, thought he was dead. And my mom was an angel, but my mom was his nurse. So that's how they met.
Wow.
And then my mom was 27 when I was born, and I just was talking to her the other day. As my level of consciousness has risen, I've gotten closer to my mom, which is very exciting. I'm glad.
Yeah.
And um, so all I do is talk to top visionaries on planet, and she has more hustle than anyone I've ever met in my entire life, ever. So endless hustle combined with story, combined with war hero who was shot down multiple times in combat, many times without a parachute. I think, 1+1+1 equals journalism.
Yeah.
And journalists don't really care about money. They don't really care. Well, they definitely don't care about employee count or revenue. They're just pure purpose, connecting visionaries to serve humanity. So I just did that for 20 years.
It's it's
Um,
it's fascinating. Sorry to interrupt. It's fascinating because you're telling stories in journalism, you're sharing
mhm.
news, And
Yeah.
I do a lot of sports analogies to life. Is that how did sports come into it then?
Because it's the ultimate warriors, modern day gladiators, and as a journalist or sports editor or sports reporter, you're right up front. And when I take my kids to sporting events now, we get as close as possible to the ice or the court or the field, because you can really understand what's actually happening at a granular and macro level. And there's so much to learn from any sport and any athlete, not just on the field or on the court, but what they've done to overcome or not make excuses to get on the court or on the field. And again, everything's a pattern. Everything's a pattern. So spent 20 years as an entrepreneur who happened to be a journalist, collecting stories and talking to people, no matter if they were dirt broke or billionaires, and now connect Visionaries to serve humanity and collect stories, whether they're dirt broke or billionaires, and then created companies that connect them.
You know what's
And I've
interesting
continued.
about that, if I can interrupt one more thing, that's interesting about that is when you sit close or you're talking close or whatnot, it's interesting how visionaries to sports athletes to doctors to whatever,
Right.
people would say, man, that looks easy. I could do that.
Ha, 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 ha.
But
No, no,
they
no,
don't,
no,
what they
no.
don't realize, and by sitting close, you do realize it looks easy to do because they're great at it.
Yeah, so to be misunderstood is to be great. So most people can't understand it, even though they think they can, because they don't understand what it takes to become great. So it's misunderstood. So there are only two things. So I talked to the top athlete, top musician, top actor, top entrepreneur, smartest people, top philosophers, top mystics, whatever that is. There are only two things they have in common. Only two that I've seen. One, they make no excuses. They have the same heart and mindset. No excuses ever. Never. At the highest level, there are no excuses ever. You don't make excuses. Two, I have not seen the exception to this. If this does happen in my lifetime, I hope it does, just to see that this person exists. But I haven't seen it yet. So, all these people had at least one person who genuinely cared and or believed in them. So that could be a coach, parent, grandparent, aunt, uncle, a priest, a teacher, a mentor. I haven't seen the exception where a visionary or top performer had no one who believed in them. That, to me, if that happens, that would be the ultimate. I mean, that would be amazing. I don't think it's going
That
to
would
happen, but
be, that'd be a
it does.
special person from God, if you will,
Oh,
because
100%. Yeah.
every,
Well, maybe then God believed in them, but I guess God believes in everybody. But you
let's
know,
hope.
yeah. So maybe that's the answer. There isn't one because, I mean, if you believe in higher power, which is fine either way, but.
And we are human, and in that sense, I think you're right. And this is why we talk about influencers a lot, which we'll get to in a bit. Is
Uh-huh.
that I notice, especially in men, when I talk to a lot of men, they look back to, man, I remember when my coach put me out. I was 8 onto the ice in the end of the game when it was a big game, big time. I didn't even score, but he put me on the ice, so he believed in me. And
Yep.
that's the one moment that's they're taking their whole confidence for the rest of their life.
Yeah, there's still that 8-year-old. It makes sense. And then, I mean, I've had endless mentors, and then one of my good friends, who's a pure visionary, Scott Danner, says every meeting is an opportunity for mentorship. So every day I have lots of mentors, and hopefully I'm doing that too. Hopefully.
Well, I've seen
Um.
you in action. I think you are, and
Oh,
it's
thanks.
it leads me to, our firm was based on the premise that leaders in their businesses, organizations can do way better all the time when they're doing good at the same time. And you clearly understood that early, and you still are. And you have, as you mentioned, your best-selling books, Epic Anxiety. I mean, Epic Business.
No, just I'm going to rename it. Cross it off.
And
So.
then Epic Life are examples. Tell me, how did that evolve for you to write them? And can you share any insights and examples of where you saw, visionaries, entrepreneurs getting it, that economic and social impact come together for better?
Oh man, tremendous. Wow, I mean, that could be a 17-hour answer, but I will say this. So Um, one of my favorite quotes is from Earl Nightingale, which is success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And those books to me just represent success as the progressive realization of worthy ideal. So started first company in 2017 after job salary was cut in half, couldn't find a job. Incorporated 6 days after turning 40 with zero B word background, zero anxiety background. And then over 6 weeks after 6 weeks working full time at half salary, reached out to 5,000 people to find first five clients. At that point, they were clients, not partners. It was different, but
Right.
got fifth client 6 weeks later, resigned next day, and then article in the Chicago papers came out. I'd started my own firm, but that was just to start the first company. And then um, uh, 30 months into first company, posted 30 things I had learned from top visionaries on planet. Uh, the first company is a global PR firm, but so posted those things, and everyone's like, write a book on it. I'm like, okay, so wrote a book, and then in the first book, the foreword was written by Chris Voss, which I'm very grateful for. He wrote Never Split the Difference. That's one of the top, uh, purpose life negotiation books in the last 20 years. So he wrote that what the first company was actually a network, an actual network of connecting visionaries. So the name and second company was actually in the forward of the second book, or I'm sorry, it was in the forward of the first book. And then all I do is talk to visionaries and talk to 1 to 2 of them every single week that have let entrepreneur life destroy their family life. So I'm like, well, you don't have to do that. So Epic Life is how to build collaborative global companies while putting your loved ones first. And then it talks about how Epic Network, the company that Chris Voss talked about in the forward of the first book, which I didn't even know existed at the time. That's how that company has been formed.
Wow, that's amazing, and it's real life, and
Yeah.
I love the fact that you do go down to the families, which then goes into the kids, obviously, and the communities, and it hits more people than people think because we're always interacting with people, so it's really important.
Hmm.
They going a little bit further, they say that the fourth industrial revolution was about or is about technology, AI being big right now, but virtual reality, you name it. But the fifth is about humanity. And it's another thing that we focus on is how does impact and talent come together to have enduring results. Can you explain further what you do? I mean, you connect visionaries that serve humanity. You
Okay.
talk about, for example, the intuitive ability to identify a good idea and
Uh-huh.
then the right leaders, or not to be cute, the right leaders who care about and understand the value of the right investors and the strategic partners
Yeah. Yeah.
and attracting the best talent, et cetera, to
Uh-huh.
both make money and purpose. Talk about that.
Sure. It's a tremendous question with good context. So thank you. Thank you for that. Um, so uh, companies to me are just extensions of purpose. They're not B words. They're just not to me. They're just extensions of purpose. So second company, which is called Brepic Network, um, uh, my family, we're in Chicago area. My partner's in San Francisco. He does 8 and 9 figure deals all day, and he's an empath, which makes absolutely no sense, but that's just how it is. And then my wife is the COO. She's a pure harmony integrator pediatrician.
Nice.
And so I'll give you the kind of the 5 baselines. So we have a 3 to 4 monthly Zoom meetings. We have in-person events. We're about to have our own TV channel just for visionaries, our members with 35 million reach. We're starting an MBA program that's with one of our members started it. She's the former global head of entrepreneurs organization. So she and her partner started an MBA program affiliated with Oxford, and then we're having a philanthropic wing as well for the company
Nice.
and then our members uh, they're all visionaries. None of them make excuses. Most of them are very, very wealthy. I'll give you, without being too specific, one of our newest members owns the most expensive house in the country that he lives in. and then he doesn't really care about that. He just wants to be around visionaries. And then one of our other members is one of the top VC raisers for women purpose-driven companies in the United States. Only 2% of VC is controlled by women, which to me is the number one problem in the world. That 98% is controlled by men.
Yep.
I think when that is just fixed, I think a lot of things will be fixed. So anyway, she's one of the top uh, on planet, really. So she gave a presentation to our group the other day, and then the person who has the really expensive house said, "Oh, my daughter's 17. One, it'd be great if she could intern with you, which is about to happen. And then two, what advice would you have as for me as a dad?" And then the member who's the female VC said, well, two things. She's like, well, one, tell your daughter that every day that she can do anything that she wants. And then two, always be her biggest champion. Always be her biggest champion. So I think in life, I mean, I actually don't know this, but I think in life, many people, wealthy people get to a point where they realize it doesn't really mean a darn thing. And I've always known that, pretty much since day one. But most people, I think they substitute happiness with wealth or money, and then they realize it doesn't bring them more happiness. So they get to a point where they want to join a group like Brepic Network, where you just want to raise level of consciousness and help people.
Right.
And then they have the capital to do it. So I know that was a long-winded answer, but like,
No, no,
another one of our new members, he had a stroke. He had a stroke, and it made him smarter. So one of our other members helped him come up with a company name called Stroke of Genius. But that's the type of, I mean, I invest a lot of money to be in top rooms on the planet. There's nothing. This is the highest level of consciousness room by far.
I,
My level of consciousness is
I,
raised so much, and it's unbelievable.
I love it. And you remember the famous scholar named Kobe, as in Bryant? Remember him?
Yeah, of course.
He once said, among
My
other
partner has a beautiful painting of Kobe Bryant in his background whenever he's on Zoom. Makes sense.
it's awesome. He once said, and sometimes you can get brilliance from places where you wouldn't expect it. If you're not listening, you miss it.
Yeah.
He once said, among other things, that everybody should have that dream, whether it's a championship or this or that or the other, the dream. But what you got to realize is the dream is right now, right here in front of us.
Well, it's right there, and presence is a gift. I don't live my life 5 years from now or 10. I never think about that. I think about what's happening right now. And then if you don't know where you come from, it's really hard to know where you are, then you don't know where you're going. So I mean, we started this interview with that, but I know pretty well where I come from. Um, but to dovetail what you said, we just had a presentation this week from a man named Alfonso James. Alfonso James. So he spent 32 years in prison for a murder he did not commit. 32 years in prison. 32 years in prison for murder he did not commit. And so he and I have been talking quite a bit lately. And he just sent me a text that I'd like to read. Because I don't really care how much money someone has. I just want to know if they're a visionary or not, and if they'll take action and not make excuses. So this is what he just sent to me, and I'll read it. So he wrote, "This is a quote I began reciting daily from 1985 to present. Quote, 'He that is perfect is perfecting perfection in me,' unquote. Throughout the years, this came to mean different things. The overall impact this had on me is, quote, 'I gain a sense of balance. My mind, soul, and spirit had to align with my purpose. I had to go through extreme suffering in order to develop a deep sense of forgiveness and love.' So that is the visionary journey. That's why I think the third book will be called Epic Journey, because there's no shortcuts to this. I'm convinced it takes 40 years minimum. Even if you're born an old soul. So we have members in our room that are well under 40, but they were born old souls. So they fast tracked it a little bit, but it's a
Many
40
lives,
years
many,
minimum.
many lives, many masters. You ever read that book? There you go. Oh my
Right.
God.
Yeah,
Right
so
there.
that's what happens when you have the
That's a
level of
coincidence.
consciousness. No, it's not. Incorrect. Incorrect. No, that
I
happens
know,
every
I know I
day.
was being sarcastic.
Oh, I wasn't. Yeah. That time I was being sarcastic saying I wasn't. Pretty funny.
No, it's an amazing book, and I think we may have talked about this. Another one called Journey of Souls that goes even further after that,
I don't have.
which is quite incredible. You know, it takes 40 years, I think, or whatever number of years, because that's the whole ball game, that journey.
That's it. I mean, and it doesn't matter if you're a visionary or not. I mean, what I will say is I think the visionary um understands it a little more than someone who's not, because what I've seen is the visionary is the most damaged person, the very most damaged. They have three and four of those four things. Most of the people I talk to are all four, the non-silver spoons.
Right.
And then they have the highest IQ, EQ, no excuses. They just figure it out. So the most damaged people with the best coping skills. So they understand the suffering the most. And then they take the most knowledge and curiosity from that, and no excuses ever.
I know that leads me to another point. You know, we're talking about people, we're talking about talent. What's your thoughts on the competitive advantage?
No competition. At the highest level, there is no competition, only collaboration. I don't believe in competition.
I agree. So what do the leaders specifically look for then in talent, and what do they offer? You know, we're pretty involved with a program called Nonflict as a foundation of looking at conflict differently. And then there's innovative discussions beyond just talk. What do leaders look for to secure the talent that want to be engaged, that want their voices heard? You mentioned women before. We do a lot of work in having women's voices be heard,
Of course.
and things like that. What do you think the leaders, the visionaries, look for in talent to give them the advantage, the collaboration advantage?
Tremendous. Again, to me, everything it's a pattern from just learning and extreme suffering, by the way. Lots of suffering, but that was good. That was good. And then every time there's a breakthrough, then there's more suffering. It doesn't stop. You just you keep going up the ladder. But here's what I see from a visionary standpoint, and then I don't know how to use the word talent. From a winning standpoint, we'll just say that. So one, no excuses, no excuses. And then talk is meaningless to me. It's meaningless to me without action. Talkers are takers. I don't really like to talk at all unless it's in something like this. I'd rather just listen. But for this, I'll talk. But there are only three things that I look for, and that I think would be good for any leader, any leader to look for. And then I'll dovetail that with two questions that I just learned that I think would be transformational for anyone to ask for any type of partnership, anything, anything. So the three things, one, they're visionary, no excuses, pure visionary, can see things. Two, live in full abundance, which is what the hat says, full abundance, no scarcity. And then three, regardless if they're an employee, whatever, it doesn't matter, the CEO, a child, whatever that is, they only look at things as investments, not costs. No costs. Not what do you charge? What is an investment? What does an investment with you look like? And then that dovetails into the two questions, whether you're looking to start a partnership or a family, or I don't know, a relationship, trusted, valued relationship. So two questions. What is your purpose and who do you love? Yeah. If someone asks me, what do? I know you asked at the beginning just for your audience, but I've never understood that question. It's really confusing to me. Who do you love and what is your purpose?
It's interesting because when I meet people, I never ask that. I usually ask, what's important to you and what's interesting about you?
Oh, better, better. Good. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for reminding me. You know, one last thing on that. We talk about voices heard. You know, I mentioned this program we're actively involved in called Nonflict that's already starting to change the world all over the place. And I noticed that really sharp leaders know that if they have a program in their organization that has a process for conflict to be looked upon differently, for people who are willing to actively listen to each other, and
Yeah.
and again, really learn from each other. And even if they still disagree, get to a point where they can specifically move forward together. Then
Mhm.
those are the type of people, those type of organizations, great talent wants to work for. What's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are I connect visionaries to serve humanity. So I connect people like you to people like you, and you help everyone else with what you just talked about.
That works. Um, so last question on this part, because in LA we usually say we got to leave them wanting more so we can do a sequel. You know that, right? Last question on this part. A client told me, and I think it was somewhere in 2021, he told me, the year 2020, Mark, was the year that flew by slowly. And I thought, what a great line, because sometimes 2020 feels like yesterday and also years ago, all at the same
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
And now we're heading second quarter almost in 2024 already. With all that, what are you most grateful for? And also, what are you most hopeful for?
Thank you for asking that. Um, um, I'm most grateful for that my children get to see that this world exists, and then they can do what they want with it. I don't live in years or quarters or weeks or days. Our youngest, his name is Chase. He's a 9 quick start like you and Colby. He's a little version of Earl Nightingale. And when he was 8, we were talking about bending time and IQ, and then um, uh, he uh, he provided the best definition of life that I've ever heard. Still, so he said life is. He considers life one long great day. Yesterday's before you're born, tomorrow's after you die. And then there are 2 ways to have a great day: do what you like to do and what you're good at, and keep getting better at it, and create more living things, whether that's a family or a foundation or something like conflict or company, plant a tree. So that's kind of how I live my life. What I've learned lately, and this is neither right or wrong, but you know, you know, I think most people have been around here a lot longer than just this lifetime, and I mean, I've seen evidence of that at this point, which I didn't necessarily believe even 2 weeks ago. But I've seen it and felt it at like the very highest level lately. But I think seeing my children have that ability, and then our 11-year-old likes to, he's a world-class athlete, runner, distance runner, but more importantly, he's just pure no excuses leader, and he likes to chart like IQ and EQ on charts. So they've been watching me talk and act like this and do things like that, and then they've started doing that themselves. So it's I'm very grateful for that. Very grateful.
And I guess hopeful for it too, I would think.
Yeah, it's the same answer. And again, I'm like singularly focused on loved ones and connecting visionaries, which by the way is the same thing to me. It's actually just learned again lately. It's actually come into the same point, same apex point, which again, success is progressive realization, a worthy ideal. You see it, but by connecting visionaries to serve humanity, I'm endlessly hopeful, and I live in full abundance. There is no scarcity. I don't even think about it. I just connect the people that are living in full abundance, and then they help everyone else.
And you know what? Hopefulness grows in as a force multiplier when you do live in that versus you sulk in the other.
Yeah, I mean, the sulking, I think is necessary. The suffering is necessary to get to the point where you don't anymore, where you really learn it. Um, and then one of our members who's a pure visionary, uh, she describes it as vibe is the multiplier. Vibe is the frequency. So when you have the abundant vibe, it's just an exponential multiplier, and it just never stops. It's really fascinating to see that in real time. And the reason why it's happening in real time is because one, focused on the present, and two, no excuses. You
Right.
just never stop ever.
Well, you know what? I thank you for being a leader who cares. I thank you for being a new friend. I feel like a longtime friend already, which I
Sure
really
we were. Sure we were. Yeah.
and we will talk again. So thanks for all the difference you make and for being on the Leaders Who Care series, man.
Honored and grateful. Thank you.